Labas vakaras visiems susijungusiems šiandien balandžio mėnesio 24 dieną. Standartiškai paskutinis mėnesio ketvirtadienis pirkimų skyriaus diena ir mes pradedame pirkimų temą. Šiandien mes turėsim pokalbį anglų kalba ir tikiuosi, kad tai niekam nekelia problemų. Tai, žinoma, pirkimai turi turėti suprasti anglų kalbą ar ne šitoje. Taigi, ir mūsų šiandienos tema yra dirbtinis intelektas. Tai nežinau, kiek iš jūsų naudoja dirbtinį intelektą, kiek ne, bet šiandien apie tai aptarsime. Iš karto pasakysiu, ko šiandien neaptarinėsim. Neaptarinėsim jokių specifinių promptų, kaip kas veikia visą kito. Daugiau bus toksai bent pasakymas, kur mes galim pritaikyti ir praktiškai pereisim prie kitų dalykų. Okay, so now I turn to English. And I want to introduce our guest, Lukas Ostrovsky. He's a co-founder of NextProcure company. And the reason why I'm happy that Lukas managed to join me, even he has some kind of flu. So Lukas, I think 20 plus more years worked in procurement. And for the last, correct, please me, Lukas, for a few last 3 years, he switched his career from procurement to AI. So if anybody in procurement is thinking to switch to AI, so after the meeting, you can always ask Lukas what are the challenges and what are the benefits. But today we will be speaking about how procurement can actually implement AI in the procurement, not to have it in some kind of big expensive softwares, but basically to have it here. So Lukas, if I did not introduce you correctly, so please correct me, but then immediately I start to the first point that I would like to start our discussion with is, so where AI should start with.
Okay, maybe a few words. Sure. Thanks a lot, Dominik, for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be with all of you. The AI topic is a very hot topic, as you know, and especially for procurement is growing and growing. So I think it will be a very nice discussion. Of course, hopefully it will be in both directions, not only our dialogue, but maybe you have some questions. I'm always happy to answer or discuss, because it's not an question-answer session, but maybe a discussion. The introduction was pretty fine. With NextProcure, I am, let's say, more something like around 2 years, maybe a bit less. It was in parallel, as I still was working for procurement as a procurement head at Allegro. So in parallel, we started to work on this with my brother. And now I am more or less fully involved into this topic. Okay, let's say as a short explanation.
Okay, so let's start from the very beginning. The company wants to have AI in some way in procurement. Where to start from? I know everyone knows Gemini or ChatGPT or something, but basically, where in our minds we should start with?
I think there are certain points of starting. First of all, as we are discussing about the company environment, where we want to start with AI, not in our private life, because it's easy. We pay maybe $20 or we don't pay anything and we use it. At the company, there are, let's say, certain limitations and rules we have to follow. That's clear. And to be honest, I think there's no single way, which is the golden way. Sometimes the initiatives are coming from bottom up and sometimes top down. Very often, for example, you have a company-wide initiative from the CTO, from the tech area, saying, okay, now in the perspective of 2 or 3 years, we will implement AI also in the back office functions or supporting functions like procurement. I think back office function, I don't like this wording, but yes, but it's a common wording for not non-core functions. And sometimes, like at Allegro partially, we started this from the bottom. So I had an idea 2 years ago where to start with in procurement with some automations. And I went to tech guys and we discussed this, and step by step we had something like a small R&D. Then we went out to the market because, of course, the internal capacity is always limited. So I think, to be honest, I don't know if I'm answering the question, because the starting point, let's say the official starting point, is top-down, bottom-up from my perspective. But within our procurement function, I think we should always start with something like a deep analysis of our process. Yes, but it's more or less with every tool we would like to purchase for our function to be more efficient. If it's, let's say, purchasing platform like Ariba, I don't know, Gap, Jagger, and all these nice platforms, we need always to prepare something like a business case. And the business case needs to base on numbers and analysis of our process and sub-processes. At the beginning, to be honest, I made also some mistakes because I was very euphoric, and the hype was very big, and I decided, okay, everywhere in procurement we need to have AI. It's nonsense. Of course, it's nonsense. Then I had a discussion with the IT guys, with my CFO, and the starting point, to be honest, is really something like a business case, detailed analysis of all sub-processes, and to pick at the beginning easy, very stable processes where you have really, where you can automate even on the document level. Documents, I don't know, which people are hating and nobody likes. I don't have an example now in my mind, but sometimes it's crazy, or working on contracts, or I don't know, RFX documentation, preparing of such things, or rules for process rules preparation. There are, let's say, some documents, they take time and nobody likes. Yes, and you can start with such processes. Of course, you need to have a certain scale behind it. Because if you would like to get money, some certain funding from the CFO to implement it, he will ask you, okay, I'm giving you 100,000 zloty or dollars, or anyway, what is the ROI into which time window time? Yes, this question will always occur, and we need to answer this. Yes, I perceive, after the entire hype in my mind, I perceive now AI as a tool, one tool of other tools, of course, very powerful tool, because the characteristic of AI is totally different than the characteristic of other platforms and tools we use. But at the end of the day, it's a tool. We need to provide a ROI, a business case, so that we really can show, okay, this is the benefit from this invest. And this should be always our initial point. And at the end of the day, this question will occur always.
So, Lucas, I want to a little bit to go deeper in your answer.
Yes.
So, of course, deep analysis of the processes is fine. What I heard, important issue is that we need to think about stable processes or repeated processes. I understand in this one, things we can talk about some kind of AI, but then you used a word automation. And then I want to make a very big separation here. Is it really AI is automation, or it's automation but not AI? Because is it the same or it is not? Because, for example, if we use some kind of power app that we just make that it automatically move the mouse and click something, is it really AI? I would not call it AI because it's only automation. So just to in there.
Yes, of course, automations. We should be maybe more precise, because I'm talking very often about AI automation or AI workflow automation. So that if you have a certain workflow, certain parts within the workflow are automated, it means very often created somehow, or the creation is supported by AI. So I think, of course, the semantic and the wording is sometimes maybe not precise, but maybe certain examples. If I am creating currently an automation for RFX document creation. Yes, and this is something like a dialogue, and in the background, the document is created automatically. I call it automation because not the person, the user, needs to write the document. He's giving the input even via voice, but at the end of the day, the document is automatically prepared by the LLM. Yes, and this is, from my perspective, automation.
Okay, so basically, if I understand correctly, so basically by speaking with the okay, let's call it ChatGPT or something, right? We can create a full document of RFQ
Yes,
template to our suppliers, right? So this means we
exactly.
don't need to know everything, we just arrange it, right?
Yes, yes. And
Mm-hmm.
this is, I think, very important point in the benefit of working with LLMs, because especially for categories which can be new for us as a person or as a company, let's say occurs pretty often. It can really be a help at the beginning to gain information, especially currently at the stage of AIs and LLMs and all these tools, available tools, generally available tools. We can really gain a lot of information, current information, fresh information. So for newcomers and people who are starting with certain categories, it can be really a big help at the beginning. I think, I know it's a bit different story than the question, but it was worth to mention this at this stage, because talking about this RFX creation, for certain, I think every one of us had not only one time, but more times in life that something was new for us. And in the past, we had to dig into Google, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe before Google, I don't know, to call someone or a certain expert or other colleague from other company, from procurement, and exchange information. Currently, it's pretty easy, and we have really all information and data on plate, and this is really a huge and enormous advantage of the current time.
Okay, so I know you mentioned a big amount of money, but I'm in procurement, so I like everything cheap or zero cost, right? So so I will move to that place immediately, right? So from your experience, I made a poll, you know, in the LinkedIn and asked in which areas we use AI currently in procurement in Lithuania. So basically, two main parts of the way we're using it. Sourcing, so this means as a Google, as I understand, or
Okay, so
to
marketing intelligence, for market intelligence mostly.
no,
Or
well, it's not for, it's for searching suppliers or something because you know
okay,
from that point of view, I
partial
think.
market intelligence.
Yeah, and then the next thing is for emails and documents.
Mhm,
So, but then my question is, you know, in order to create some kind of business case study for the
mhm,
company to give me more money, I need first of all to show initial example, something kind of free of charge or almost at zero cost. So that's why I talk
mhm.
about ChatGPT. It's 25 euros per month or something. So it's very easy, right? So what area would you recommend to start with in order to have the most benefit from the very early that we could, you know, a little bit ramp up all the background in the company that look, hey, procurement is doing something and maybe we can do also, and then maybe of course we can have then better IT support, better financing and all these things.
Okay, and I think in this context we have two areas, because I think we started already discuss about certain AI application to be implemented.
Mhm.
But I think what we are missing, and there's still a huge gap in my opinion, it's my personal opinion, that we should start using on personal level, of course, on the job, with AI tools we have available. Let's say, I think most of us are working either in the Microsoft environment or maybe Google environment with their workspaces. And if it's, let's say, a company setup, you have mostly always access to Copilot or to Gemini. It's included in the pricing mostly. And the question is, and maybe we can have even a short polling here in the discussion. The question is, if we already use frequently, few times a day, these tools for our daily work within procurement. This would be very, let's say, interesting to see, because here starts the, let's say, here starts the beneficial work with AI. And the next step is, because of course this has certain limits, using these tools, we can optimize our personal work, as you mentioned, email writing, document preparation. If you use maybe Gemini Gems or ChatGPT, private GPTs, you can make even an assistant for you and share it with your team very often as well, where you have, for example, an approach to analyze contracts or financial data. Yes. And this is pretty easy and almost on zero cost, because you mentioned also the cost.
Mm.
And I think if we really feel, let's say, achieve a high level of this integration and usage, we should think about say, and customize for us the not trick, but the challenges to define what, as I mentioned at the beginning. And then you, I don't know, you can hear me because I get the information.
Yes.
My internet is not stable, but hopefully it works. And then you need really to make sub-processes analyze, because what you need a huge number of processes per year or per month, per time, a huge number of documents, if we are talking about documents, and of course, bigger number of persons dealing currently with this. I think these are three preconditions, not talking about the private, let's say, improvement with AI, but let's say something on scale. We need these three preconditions to start building a business case. I had maybe a short anecdote. Sorry, I need to, clean up. I can share a short anecdote. I had the discussion with my former CFO at Allegro, especially about implementing of AI tools and procurement. And I had two business cases. One business case, it was about analyzing offers, complex offers, but let's say all offers we get within RFP document, RFX processes. And the other business case was on a certain process for our vendor management process where only two people are working. And this would be for the two people, of course, a big gain, but from the function, entire procurement function, not the biggest. And my CFO told me at the beginning, of course, I was angry because I thought, great idea, why not, and so forth. But after a few days, let's say, I recognized that he was right, because it's a pretty easy mathematics at the end, because to implement certain automation, we need internal sources or external sources. Internal sources, it means internal AI engineers. We had a department with AI engineers, and they are pretty expensive. And if you need to go to outside, you need also to pay something for that. On top of that, you have, of course, certain inference costs dealing with or talking to LLMs, and so there are certain costs behind it. And this is the basis for the business case. If you have something on scale, so let's say a few hundreds or thousand processes per year, so let's say RFP processes, and with tons of documents and so far, then it makes hugely sense to think about AI. If you're doing something for one or two persons, even you save 50% of the time, probably the business case will be anyway negative. So, and I think there are a lot of simple examples where we can really go step by step, process by process in procurement and say, okay, huge effort, a lot of documents, and a lot of people behind it, because everyone needs to make it more or less. And yes, this is more as a risk, but I would say this is a basis to start thinking about business cases.
Okay, so I liked your saying of huge effort, right? Because I think in current time, business needs speed, and sometimes, speed matters money, even if there is one or two people working there.
Yeah.
If we can increase the speed of them, so it can be a good solution as well there. But I think well, actually, I like your approach from that point of view. That let's start from personal point of view in the work. This means try to understand how Gemini Copilot or ChatGPT works in my working area, and try to do it there, what kind of functions I can do, or maybe to create ChatGPTs. By the way, do you know any good examples that someone created a good ChatGPTs by themselves and it really works? Because I know that there are a lot of limitations there and so on.
I can tell on my experience, because
Okay.
2 years ago, I created let's say, a private GPT, because as a head of procurement, I was also responsible to approve vendors from certain threshold of cooperation. I don't know, a few $100,000 of cooperation. Then I get financial data, let's say something like a report on the respective vendor, and I had to make the decision yes or no. Yes. And it took time. Even I have studied accounting, everything, but if you don't use it, you forget it immediately. Yes. And I spent sometimes per one vendor half an hour, sometimes 1 hour to analyze, to recall the formulas, how to calculate what. And I was thinking, okay, it doesn't make sense in this way. And as we had already within our company integrated OpenAI LLM with our Slack, I started to use Slack, yes, but not just that, because I wanted always to have the outcome of the analysis in the same structure. So I prepared something like a system instruction for the LLM, where I get always the same structure, same analysis, something like executive summary, analysis, recommendation, and something like this. If you like, I can share such prompts, system prompts with you if it's interesting for you.
No, of course we always like.
Of course,
we always like free things.
yes.
We always like it. Come on,
yes. And then I put it into my private GPT within company, and if I get information on the about the vendor, I put it in, and I get always the same structure of the report. And if there was no information, particular information, that it was stated, okay, no information found, but it's totally fine. For me, it was important to get always the same structure of the report. And then, of course, at the beginning of the report, I had a certain scoring from 0 to 10, and if I get something above 7, no problem, we approve it. Of course, I did not align with finance department on it to use it, but to be honest, such calculations on ROIs and financial data, it's something purely basic for LLMs. It's not the rocket science. I think we don't need really to implement financial or controlling department to decide it, because it's not, let's say, astrophysics. It's pure mathematics, and it was help, because within, I don't know, 3-5 minutes I had the report and the decision, and at certain point of time I started to attach also the screenshot of this report to SAP, so that it's, let's say, black and white on which basis I made the decision.
Okay, so now I should jump to another question about the safety of the information, but I want to have a very practical question for you. How many mistakes did LLM did in analyzing data?
I think it depends what you're analyzing.
Yeah, but based on your example, you made a vendor management this one. So how many mistakes there were?
Yeah. I prepared this particular, let's say, assistant 2 years ago. And 2 years ago, of course, the LLMs were totally at a different stage as today. And of course, there were, let's say, some misunderstandings, gaps in the data, gaps in the report. And if you re-asked something, it worked somehow. And not every model was, let's say, the best for the task. But currently, I think with more or less every model, you can do bigger things than I made 2 years ago. So I think currently it's not the issue. Of course, we should always have certain level of expert knowledge to check it, or maintain some point checks to be sure that it's not wrong. It's still a machine. It's still hallucinating. Even we are much more advanced with the LLMs than 2 years ago, 3 years ago, but there is still a certain percentage. But I think, and this is important, because as I worked also at Allegro, and we are preparing the other process automation for offer analysis. I get sometimes the question, okay, but this is only machine, and that machine can make mistakes in evaluating of offers. Yes, because the approach should be that the LLM or the engine or assistant is proposing the evaluation, and of course the last decision is making the human, the user. But to be honest, and I think, I don't know if you agree with me, but I saw a lot of, let's say, strange evaluations in my life, in my 20 years, especially if you're talking about this qualitative evaluation. I don't tell about commercial, because it's pretty easy to use an algorithm to calculate it. But if you have soft topics and you need to evaluate it, in my opinion, LLMs are much more precise and are getting something like much more balanced evaluation than humans, making this very subjectively.
Okay, so good. So I hear from you another point. Actually, here 2 new covers areas that I did not think about it. Okay, one was analyzing the offer, so I'm familiar with it. of course, I have sometimes problems with the data that it's not correctly calculate something. So as you mentioned, it's still a machine. But for the vendor management system, yes, it's a good thing. But then, I think one of the reasons why some companies are not doing this, how you say, private work in the companies is because of the data security.
Yeah.
So
very hot topic.
Yeah, how to convince someone that it's okay to upload the data. So I mean, just one remark.
Sorry.
I heard in the conference that if we pay for the tool, the data should be safe. But is it really this? Or
yes, in general, there is such how to call it in English, degrees. Let's say certain degrees. LLMs or platforms you are using for free, you can be sure the data will be used for learning and for other things. Yes, it's not your data. Yes, if you're, let's say, paying this $20 to, I don't know, Gemini or ChatGPT, it should be really safe and will not be used for further, let's say, trainings. And if it's a corporate setup, it's anywhere very safe. I had a discussion on a Polish conference, a procurement conference, I think in February, and we had this conference at one IT company. And the IT guys, because I'm not expert, I am dealing maybe a little bit with technology, but I'm not the engineer. But the engineers told us currently, maybe differently than 2 years or 3 years ago, the let's say instances from Asia, from GCP, or I don't know from which companies, are so safe. There's no chance, more or less, that our data we are using in our company, ChatGPT or Gemini, are flowing out of our company. The instances also closed, and on the other hand, it's the core business of the companies. They need to have the highest security. Mostly it's a higher security than we have in our companies, what we are using on the cloud versions. And maybe it's not really present, especially in discussion with our top management, who's maybe still on the 2-3 years ago level, saying, okay, it's dangerous. It's not, especially if we have our company or enterprise set up, the data is really sure and we can use it. Of course, I know that certain companies, pretty often banks, are very, let's say, how it got careful and do not allow even within the instance to use personal data. I know from certain companies that if you would like to put a certain document into the own LLM, not own LLM, but let's say on the instance, you need to mark black the personal data. Okay, but then it's a bit nonsense to if you
well,
like
I'm
to
thinking,
automate it.
I'm thinking how AI is smart enough to guess what is behind this black data. So that's another topic.
I wouldn't overrate LLM's capabilities. Yes, it's still a mathematical algorithm, very complex, of course. But of course, maybe from the context itself, if there is no naming of the company or person, then the LLM can, of course, will see what the service is behind. And of course, if there's monopolies on certain market, then it's easy to know. Yes, but okay, I think these are the corner cases. Yes, but in general, the data is really safe, colleagues. And if you have enterprise setup, go to your IT. Go to your IT, ask them. They should tell you that it's the case. If not, let me know. Yes, because we had really discussions. Sometimes, of course, IT will say, "Ooh," because they don't want to implement such easy tools. Yes, or to switch on Gemini for everyone, or Gemini Gems or ChatGPT. This, let's say, okay, certain configurations, this and that, but okay, in general, it's really safe, colleagues.
Okay. So now I'm just coming back a little bit to the areas where we can use it. So I think that there are not so many companies in Lithuania that can have AI on the corporate level, right? And I think we are still in more or less on the stage where we use for that, how we say, personal usage, or maybe in some cases a little bit higher this one. So
but if I could interrupt for a second,
sure.
because you don't need to be, let's say, a 5,000 people company to have something like an enterprise setup. Of course, the enterprise setup will cost maybe a few $100s for the company, but it's not the money going in millions.
Okay.
Yes, it's still enterprise setup with enterprise security, and maybe okay. I think every there are also some, let's say, cheap possibilities to use something on your data center. Even you're a smaller or mid-sized company, you can put on your data center LLMs, mostly from Llama, because it's very popular to have Llama LLMs on your own devices even. But also from let's say from other providers, you can do it. And then you're anyway on the safe side, and you don't need always to have these big LLMs we know from GPT, Gemini with 10 million context windows. Sometimes a very good LLM, Llama LLM, is doing really great job. Yes, but okay, I didn't want to interrupt you, but I wanted to say it's not necessary to be a very huge company to have enterprise setup.
Okay, good. So it's good, I think, good to point it as well. So, my question was just before moving to a little bit soft issues for the using of all AI things, but in which areas you think procurement should use AI and currently is not using? Well,
Yeah.
the question behind it is, that I don't know what I don't know, and in this case, I don't know where to use it, and that's in case I would know it, I would use it, but I don't know that I can use it in this, and because I don't have any example. So
yes, I think you touched a very crucial point, because in my opinion, there's a lot of let's say connected to education. If we don't use it or we did not train our teams, even for our personal improvement usage of AI, then of course the colleagues do not know. Some colleagues are of course proactively doing this, some not, but I think we need really to think about something like a team education or in general company education on AI. And some companies are starting doing this. Yes, at Allegro, as I left Allegro in the last, let's say, month, there was a big program to educate colleagues, because everyone get access to Gemini, because it was in the package. We were a Google company with Google Workspace, and I think 2 hours or 90 minutes, 2 hours are enough to give first, let's say, impulses and insights to colleagues how to use it. And then it's, let's say, totally different approach if you would like to make the next step to more advanced applications and systems, because the colleagues already know more or less how to deal with it, what to do with it, what is possible, what's not possible. So I think the first step is really education. This is also the reason that we, with the Next Procure, are focusing currently on certain trainings on this, especially personal boosting of productivity, because applications more or maybe even easier, because it's clear if application is implemented, we need to make a training, tests, UIs and UA8 so tests, and probably the entire team will be trained anyway. Yes, but this personal part is, I think, there's still a big gap to be closed. And coming back to your question, where in the processes to use it? To be honest, if you take a look really on every sub-process, you can use AI in every sub-process. If it makes sense, it's a different story. And again, if you are talking about our private or my private productivity, I can make it very broad. About tools and processes, we need really to make cherry picking where it makes really sense. As mentioned, huge numbers of people, documents, and processes every year. So, for example, perfect, and I think one of the most advanced already processes is contracting. Of course, it's something in between legal and procurement, depending on company. Sometimes procurement professionals are responsible for preparation of contracts. Sometimes we are pushing this to legal, depends. But contracting, I think, was anyway the first most advanced area where LLMs were, let's say, used. Yeah, because LLMs love text and much more than numbers and tables. And this was a pretty easy area to make it. Even I know that not every legal department in the company love such solutions for certain reasons, of course. But on the other side, let's say you as a procurement professional would like to have something like a first analysis of a document. It's perfect to make it with LLMs, yes? Based on this law or that law, you can take easily your templates, your terms and conditions, and analyze external documents versus these documents. You can make it on more advanced applications, but also with something like private GPTs or Gemini gems. So there are really plenty of areas where to do it. So contracting, of course. You mentioned also sourcing. Within sourcing, I would touch certain parts. For example, RFX document creation, I see as very feasible, office analyzing, and office analyzing this, and market intelligence. Yes, if we take this also as a part of the RFP process, RFX process. So this 3 parts. And of course, probably you will make it separately in certain tools, but in these three areas, it's very feasible, especially within the last 2 or 3 months, or maybe 6 months, I don't know, we see a big, let's say, big number of research or deep research and search and analysis versions of the LLMs. And I don't know if you're using this. I'm using this very frequently per day, so within one day, very often. And it's really a huge help really to gather data and sources. Of course, we need always to be careful on sources because you'll get sometimes, and it's sometimes really tricky, you get really, I don't know, 10 pages, great analysis sounding great. But if you take a look, most of the quotations are from 1 or 2 sources. Even the entire list is 50, but the 90% was taken from 2 sources. So we need always to check the quality of the work the platforms are providing, but it's much really a great help. And I cannot imagine, to be honest, currently an analysis without Perplexity or Gemini research or ChatGPT research. It's really, these are really great, powerful tools. And even you don't have it on your company instance, you don't need to put any, let's say, confidential data if you use it, because make a market analysis on this category, I wouldn't say it's a confidential data because you don't put any company data in. It's, let's say, very generic wording or question. Yeah, so so this. And vendor management, at least from my perspective, it's a bit tricky. I don't know how it's in Lithuania, but in Poland, we have, let's say, a lot of, let's say, rules from our authorities and connection to our, let's say, local platforms about taxation, about, let's say, blacklists, whitelists of accounts. So we have a lot of, let's say, local requirements. And we can only partially connect them somehow to one source and combine with LLMs. Well, with vendor management, it's rather easy. If you have really something like a professional vendor management platform with data enrichment from different sources like EcoVadis, risk management, financial data from Coface or DNB, and this is connected or it's going to one platform, then of course we can easily connect also LLM to make some analysis, and maybe even our internal company volume, or let's say not volume, but spend data is also connected to such platform. Then it's easy to make certain reports and analysis also with AI. But to be honest, it's only my perspective. Vendor management or supplier relationship management, partially yes, but it's still pretty tricky due to this local requirements I see very often. Yes, so yeah.
Okay, so then I have, I know that everybody wants to ask this question, but you know how procurement loves Excel, right? So is there any tool? Yeah, so is there any tool that we can delete Excel and just use something that could really, make all these things? Maybe there is some kind of LLM, as you mentioned, they are good for text, but not very good in numbers. So is there anything there that could replace Excel?
to be honest, I think it's a more ideological question than only a question on Excel, because I think we as humans and let's say professionals working with numbers like still and will still like this tabular view, because it's very easy to understand the correlation. So I think tables as such you will still use. If we need to prepare them and analyze them, it's a different story. But because I think it's a very fresh topic, we are preparing with Next Procure a tool for office analyzing, and this is exactly the limitation. As mentioned, LLMs do not like numbers and tables. Of course, if you're putting to ChatGPT in OpenAI or to Gemini a big table, it will work, but it's not the LLM which is working, because of course, if you're putting into ChatGPT a table, immediately the tools are switching on, which are analyzing tables and numbers. Yes, LLMs do not like calculate, because LLMs can perceive the next step of text, what is the next wording, but not what is the next number. So they cannot calculate, to be honest. Okay. Maybe it's not precise, but they cannot calculate. The LLMs have a range of tools around them in the, let's say, platforms we use very often, which are switching on if they need, let's say, to understand a picture, to understand, let's say, the table, to calculate something. There are tools around the LLMs to make it possible. Yes, we see it because if you make a application and connect directly via API LLM to the application, you see it immediately that you need another tools, for example, OCR, to read the PDF or Excel file. Very often, such customized platforms make from Excel file pictures or PDFs, because this is something LLMs are understanding. Pure tables and Excels, not really. If you're really dealing with pure
so your answer disappoints me, and I will still need to work on Excel. Okay, but now let's. I see that our
it will be much easier. Of course, it will be much easier, but because the analytical capacity capability of LLMs is already very huge, also with tables. But the tables need to be translated to, let's say, to pages, then maybe vectorized. But I don't want to dive into the technicals. But it's let's say. It's maybe not more the big challenge, but it's on the stage where we need still a way to go, where we will be, let's say, perfectly dealing with tables and huge data. It's not only about tables, because we made also tests for some RFP documents with more than 100 pages. Of course, you can ask yourself which companies make a RFP document with 100 pages. But there are some state-owned companies, and they base on certain rules, and the documents are pretty long. And even this is a pure text, the LLMs do not get it, yes, because it's too long. Sometimes to analyze it, you need to send hundreds of requests to the LLM, and you have also limitations on the requests you can send per minute to LLMs. So there are, let's say, certain limitation, technical limitation. I don't want to bother you with these topics, but if someone is telling you, plug and play to LLM or to, I don't know, AI agent or something like this, and it's easy, it's not. It's really a lot of R&D work and case by case, and you need really to customize very often to the client, to the process and documentation they are mostly using. So it's not easy. It's really, hard work.
Okay. So yeah, so this means we will still be keeping, Excels in our mind. So I see our time is running out a little bit. So I think we will coming to last 2-3 questions. Maybe in the meantime, I want to ask our colleagues that are watching us if you have any question that we didn't cover. So it's a good time now to write an answer, because otherwise we will not just simply have enough time to do that. But now I want to switch to another, maybe a little bit more soft topic or psychological topic, right? So I have personally saw a few people that we were talking about the implementation of AI in daily life, in daily corporate life, let's say so. And their first reaction is, I tried, it do not do it perfectly in the first time, and it doesn't work. I don't want to waste my time.
Yeah.
So how to say, is there a way how to work with them better, or is there a way just how to say to wait it? Because,
Yes.
for example, I think ChatGPT improved in 2 years, I think, dramatically. So, you know, what was in the beginning was a little bit maybe like a, you know, like a fairy tale. Now it seems a very realistic case. So what is the best way?
It's again education and education, because
Okay.
using LLMs for certain topics and tasks, we need to ask them properly. And it's about prompting. I don't like this prompt engineering as wording, because it's maybe not engineering, but it's the proper communication with the LLM. And there are, let's say, tons of different sources every one of us can let's say, gain. I am, for example, running such training, especially for procurement processes, how to prompt to get certain results. Yeah, using tools like ChatGPT, Gemini, what we have within the company, or Copilot, because Copilot is very frequently used. But of course, you can ask 5 words, but you can also ask 5 sentences. You will get totally different results. It's nothing new what I'm saying, because every one of us know it. But still, we need to learn really how to ask, or how to communicate with LLMs. And of course, if you would like to have something like a private GPT for financial analysis, what I mentioned, it will be a longer, sometimes 2-3 pages system instruction. But for, let's say, something like a quick response and quick discussion with the LLM, you maybe need only 3 blocks. You have to consider always something like a context, your role, and your task, and maybe sometimes also formatting. Yes, but you don't need then the entire page of different blocks as you need for system instruction. So depending on the case, we need always to think about certain structure to ask the LLM. Still, this are still only machines or algorithms. They do not know what is in our mind, in our brain, what we are thinking about. They need the more precise the input, the more precise the answer.
Okay. So I understand very well, and I think this topic covers a little bit of all these, that we still need a lot of to learn how to think and how to translate our minds to to whatever tool we use, because only in the way, and I personally I feel this, you know, that you start thinking a little bit differently in order to get something, and it's a little bit the same like talking with people, you know. If I write you one sentence, I will get one answer.
Yes.
If I tell you the story why I want this and this one, so it's the same thing. So it's a good thing. But now in time frame, right? Like, let's say I want to implement something, I don't know, let's say some kind of small ChatGPT or something. How do you think, how much time I would need to invest before I get a reasonable working, I don't know, some kind of
Yes.
ChatGPT, some tool?
Yes, today I think it's pretty easy and pretty short, I would say. So, in my opinion, maybe I start from the different angle. 2 years or 3 years ago, and beginning of 2023, as I started to prepare certain things for procurement and certain system instructions, I made a lot of mistakes. Only mistakes, too long, too short, different, let's say, different prompts, wrong prompts. And it took me a few days to have, let's say, a good result. Today, it's pretty easy, because you can even, and to be honest, I'm also pretty, how it's called, lazy. And I prepared something like in Anthropic, a cloud from Anthropic, I prepared a project. It's something like a private GPT, which is providing me with prompts. I'm giving the context and the result I would like to have, and then this private GPT is providing me something like an optimal, perfect prompt for other LLMs, and then I can take the prompt and I will get really a great result. So today it's pretty easy. So I would say if someone has zero knowledge, and start a short training, 1 to 2 hours fast training, and then I think there can be after 3-4 hours something like first nice results how to get certain processes and documents analyzed. So it's questions today, in my opinion, it's rather a question of hours.
Okay, very nice. I like, in procurement, we like speed and timing, so it's very good.
Yes,
Okay,
yes, yes.
so I think now just one of the last questions, actually. So just will you agree with me or not, that there are people that thinks that, one tool can solve all the questions, but now understand that they're basically, AI is like a, mobile phone number or mobile phone, that it's only a device, but then there are very different apps that can have it. Because, for example, if I now turn on my page, ChatGPT, it's already 7 models, and I'm confused what is doing what.
Yes, indeed. And the huge range of models, let's say, is already saying something to us, because indeed certain models are better for certain things. Let's say Anthropic, as I mentioned, Claude from Anthropic. I use it mostly and frequently for analysis and very, let's say, precise communication. It's more something like analytical guy, or maybe something like a coach. Differently to Gemini, which is rather creative, more creative, and sometimes, sorry, high level. And if I go to Copilot, it's something good for very fast and short questions. Yeah? Because I don't know if you use Copilot sometimes. I don't really like it because it's too general. I think there are some smaller LLMs behind the Copilot from Microsoft, and it's not really convincing me. So, and indeed, certain LLMs have, let's say, or better on certain things. For coding, you will have Anthropic GPT-4.1, and from Gemini, these 2.5 Flash. But for creative topics, different LLMs from the same family. So and then you have, of course, reasoning and other topics, and so. Sometimes it's a bit overrated and a lot of marketing behind it, to be honest. But, we cannot forget that LLMs, where we pay this $20 a month, are still some certain product the companies want to sell. So they need always to make certain marketing behind it, that it's great, game changer every day and something like that. I would be careful with this, let's say, with the interpretation of such things.
Okay.
Because I am already tired hearing every day that there's a game changer again on the market. It's not.
Okay. So then I think we're going to the last question. So, from your experience, what are the biggest illusions that companies and people have with AI, either by implementing, either by using, or by this one? So what we should be, in procurement, we are always thinking about the possible risk and benefits, and these ones. So what should be aware of that it is really not doing that, and don't have
I think
any.
there are two main illusions still. The one
Okay.
illusion is that AI will do everything for us. And the second illusion is that AI will replace us. Both is wrong. Yes, I think maybe in 20 years, I don't know. Yes, but maybe sometimes in certain time frame, maybe we won't be necessary. But within, let's say, next 10 years, I cannot see that procurement guys and professionals will be obsolete. We will still do our work, maybe more focus with more important things, and doing this, let's say, things we don't like, giving this to our teammate from AI team, and that's it. And if we take a look at the pace, how companies and procurement areas are, let's say, implementing this, it's not very high, or I don't know, very fast. It's my impression also from the discussion with big companies. There's still a big resistance and distance to such solutions due to certain limitations, budget, data, let's say, data protection, and so far and so far. Even the data is protected, as we discussed, but sometimes there are some, let's say, some thoughts in mind that it couldn't work and it's nothing for us. We stick to our old processes. it will take time. Yes, it will take time. And from my perception is if we, as procurement functions, will gain something like a 20% saving in general overall within next years via automation, AI automation or AI in general, it will be a great success. I don't think about 50, 60%. Of course, if you take only one sub-processor, one document, of course, you can achieve 100. But let's say from our overall something like annual time spent, we are working 20%, sorry, I see already as a big success on the horizon.
Nice. So this means that we have 1 year to have at least 20-25%, and it will be a good number. So let's not think about this 70% or 80%. It's fine. So now, as our time is absolutely run out, so I ask you just one last recommendation or maybe some ideas where you would switch us a little bit to move this one. So colleagues, if any questions, now it's a good time to think about it, to raise the hand, to turn off the camera and to ask it. If not, then not. Then I will ask the last question. So Lukasz, what would you recommend us to read or to see, or I don't know, to look where that we could be a little bit more advanced in AI, or maybe in thinking of how to work with AI?
Yes. To be honest, as I started 3 years ago, 2 years ago, something like that, YouTube was my library. YouTube and some let's say platforms, not platforms. I used YouTube, the first address, and then, for example, trainings from Google, from Microsoft, free of charge trainings. Sometimes it's too technical. I was interested in technical questions. Even I understood maybe 50% of it. It's sometimes too difficult, but in general, it's interesting for me. But to be honest, if you would like to start, use LLMs or AI in general operatively, we can really pick certain, let's say, movies from YouTube where we will see how to work on certain topic, on certain process, on certain problem, because this is what we want to solve procurement with such tools. We don't need to really to know the technical aspects behind it. We want to know how it works, what are the limitations, how to ask the LLM, and which tool is the best, because as mentioned, not every platform is the best for everything. And I think this is we should learn. And YouTube really, colleagues, you have millions, almost millions of different sources. I don't know. I think I have prepared something like a library, also a list of links. I need to take a look if I will find it. Yes, I think I have a short list of 15 sources from YouTube I have used at the beginning. Maybe I can share it with you, but I need a few times, let's say, to search my documentation.
So of course, we managed to ask you, and you almost promised to us some prompting, some free something.
Yes.
What was there, and this list, of course, we like free. This is nice.
Maybe I will make anyway something like a available library I am using somewhere on a certain space, because I get this question more often, and maybe I should put everything to one place.
Yeah, I think it would be an important,
good idea. You see, such discussions providing to good ideas.
Of course. Okay, so Lucas, thank you very much for joining us, and
it was a pleasure.
Thank you for all my colleagues that join us.